What kind of tactics are they using?
Oh boy. So I've seen, for example, lawyers, especially one in particular, coach their clients to hire private investigators to follow and what I call stalk mom, even though there's no valid reason for it. It's not like her income's in dispute. It's not like there's any allegations that she's doing stuff that she's not admitting. Like
she's not dealing drugs. She's not
nothing. No, and I think it's designed just to intimidate mom, like following them to events that there's no reason for the PI to be there.
Right.
And the worst part is with PIs, especially private investigators, their job, generally speaking, is to be in the shadows.
Yeah.
But, with these people, somehow, for some reason, they're always seen and visible. And I think that that's sending a message to mom that you're being watched and stalked. So I've seen that tactic used. Motion after motion after motion, I've seen being used, litigation abuse. And it's an important point because what they do is this. Put aside the stuff where somebody might be making up allegations, okay? I'll put that side of the spectrum away because there's always people who flat out, they just make up stuff. Right. I'm going to go with the best argument that they have. Something legitimately happened.
Okay.
Now, ordinarily, if somebody does something wrong, they have an ability to address it. Okay? No one is perfect.
Yeah.
But what a lot of abusers do, and in some cases lawyers who represent abusers do, is they hyper-focus on anything you did wrong. So if you did 99 things right and one thing wrong, that one thing is the focus of their case in perpetuity, and they will bring every motion available to them, which I call litigation abuse, to address it. Whereas under normal circumstances, right? You'd maybe send a letter. You'd say, hey, you didn't do this right. Next time, can you maybe change? And then you'll say, oh, I apologize.
Right.
Absolutely. Or maybe you'll have an excuse or whatever, but you'll know for next time.
Yeah.
But that's not what they do. And meanwhile, on the other end of the spectrum, okay, if they do 99 things wrong and one thing right, only the one thing right is their absolute focus. And what they'll do, that I've seen as a strategy, is they will intentionally do one thing right just so they could focus on that to detract from 99 things they did wrong. And so I've seen that tactic used.
So you could have a parent who's like abusive and doing all these terrible things, and then they coach soccer.
Yes.
For their kid. So look at that. They are an involved parent.
Right.
They are the head of the soccer team.
Yeah. And the difficulty is because, look, again, there's two spectrums of people.
Right.
There are legitimately the dads, for example, that, and this is why when I say, like, I don't like the tunnel vision, right? Like, I like both sides of the argument.
Yeah.
There's the dads that legitimately say, look, during the marriage, we divided and conquered. We have a new reality now, and I want to be more involved. Legitimately.
We see those dads too, and we love that.
Like, they step up.
They do.
Like no other.
Dads. Yeah.
And they're like wonderful fathers.
Doing more parenting than they've ever done.
And how many moms have been like, if you did this much in our marriage, we wouldn't even be divorced.
So there's that camp of people that I fully support, and I want them to get involved and be the
those
best
are the 50-50 fathers.
Yeah,
those are the fathers that deserve reasonable consideration for 50-50.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? Depending on the age and stage of development of the child, but those are the parents.
They're the contenders for it.
They're the contenders. They truly divided and conquered.
Yeah.
No abuse, real allegations, like just, maybe they're workaholics or whatever. So put those ones aside. But then there's the ones that they do it for optics, and they don't care about being the coach of the game. They just want to go to court and say, look, I'm the coach.
Right.
And those are the ones that are dangerous because they detract from everything else. Why? Kind of goes back to, well, what would the psychology of a judge or maybe a social worker be? Well, I wouldn't just coach for optics. Right. I want to support my kid. So this person must really support their kid.
Right.
And that may not be accurate because they don't get the mindset.
So are these abusers typically seeking out a lawyer who is like, okay, cool, you were abusive? I've got a great strategy for you. Like, how do these lawyer clients find each other? Because it does seem to be like a select few.
So, okay, interesting question. Again, I can't group everyone in the same
Sure.
category.
Right.
Okay. In many cases, they get referrals,
Okay.
and that's fine. There are a subset of
Okay.
abusers that it appears to me that there is certain forums like Facebook groups
Right.
of
Interesting.
abusive men. Now, they don't call themselves abusive men,
Right.
Sure.
but
I see.
it appears there, and they develop strategies,
Uh-huh.
and they refer to effectively
Got it.
similar lawyers over and over again,
Right.
who try to minimize the abuse and start with, it's always alienation,
Right.
right? It's never, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize this was happening. Let me change. Let me get some
Right.
support and let me prove to you
Right.
that I'm okay. It's always, I've done nothing wrong. Everything
Right.
is denied, and you are an alienating parent, and
Yeah.
you are the problem.
Well, there's no willingness to change. They're now using the court system and like separation as just a new method to continue the abuse.
And they've had success with said argument.
exactly
Right? They've had success with this alienation argument.
So it does,
Right.
and this is another problem, because I didn't go into one of the other problems that courts have is they don't have the requisite training in parental alienation,
Yeah.
because they so generalized, and they say, well, I have my own ideology, but they haven't looked at any of the literature or research, right? So they just, it's almost like they make it up as they go.
Yeah.
And there's reasonable suspicion for this, because even most of the social workers, as we could talk about,
Yes.
make it up as they go. Because
Yes.
I don't know if people are aware of this. I'll actually say it now. There is no uniform practice to deal with parental alienation or reunification therapy, for example. There's no standardized courses. There's no unifying body. People just make it up.
Yeah.
And even within the scientific community, there's a lot of controversy. Well, if there's controversy in the scientific community, okay, about it, well, a judge who has very little knowledge or training as to what is and is not accepted is probably not the best person to make the decision.
Right.
Okay. So there's already a big body of research that has been accepted, especially in Canada, okay, about abuse being relevant to parenting. So there is an old school way of thinking that abuse is not relevant to parenting. And there's a lot of really horrific decisions that are publicly available where a judge has found that a parent is incredibly abusive, but here's your shared parenting and 50-50 and joint decision making.
And is that if there was not abuse towards the to the child? Like if it was only
This
abuse?
is just the other parent.
That was the argument.
That's the
That was the
rationale?
argument. They said,
Right.
well, you're abusive to the wife, but not to the child.
Right.
But there's now an accepted body of social science literature that says that is nonsense.
Yeah.
And by the way, this has been accepted by the Supreme Court of Canada as well in the Barron-Drecht decision, that abuse is in fact relevant to parenting.
Yeah.
You could look at paragraphs 143 to 144 of the Barron-Drecht decision, which basically confirms this. Okay, so if anyone who wants to fact check me, go ahead. Now, in January of 2023, the Department of Justice in Canada put out what was called the Help Toolkit. And I think the full title was Help Toolkit Identifying and Responding to Family Violence for Legal Advisors. And it was meant, I believe, to be a helpful roadmap into this is what's accepted social science literature so that you can navigate these systems. And at pages 27 to 28, as you can see, I've unfortunately had to cite this many
Very
times
familiar.
Yeah.
in my cases. Pages 27 to 28 of the Help Toolkit, they outline all the reasons that it has been accepted by the government of Canada as why abuse is relevant to parenting.
Right.
And some of those, you've hit the nail on the head, which is, first of all, abuse continues after separation. In some cases, for example, the abuse escalates.
Right.
They use parenting as a way for continued power and control.
Weaponize,
Sometimes abuse even escalates because the protective parent isn't even there. Okay. And there's a whole range of fact, pages 27 to 28 for any of your viewers. It's right online, Department of Justice website. You Google it, Help Toolkit. It'll be like the first pop up on Google, and you could see what the accepted literature is. So the problem, I hate talk about problems, but the problem is that notwithstanding that there seems to now be consensus that abuse is relevant to parenting, it hasn't trickled down yet into the systems. It hasn't trickled down yet to the Children's Aid Society. It hasn't trickled down yet to some judges, not all.
Right.
Some judges are very knowledgeable in the area. It hasn't trickled down to the Office of the Children's Lawyer.
Like, Phil, how?
The Children's Aid Societies are there.
That's the whole job.
They're the front line, right?
Children's Aid. Like, how is that not the first trickle down? How is it not permeating into these government organizations that are meant to protect our children?
Again, so couple issues. Number one, lack of training. Okay. And they will argue up to here that they have all sorts of great training. I've explored their training, and I personally am not impressed by it.
Yeah.
So I think there's a big lack of training, and it's also an ideology, right? Are they coming out of social work, a social work degree with an ideology that parental alienation is the be all and end all, or do they understand abuse?
Right.
Because look, I'll tell it to you like this. I have colleagues who are social workers, including some who just recently graduated from the Bachelor of Social Work and then got a Master's of Social Work. And I asked, I'm like, so tell me about the training on domestic violence. Like, none. Right? And of course, I'm being a little flippant.
Sure.
It's not none, like as in zero, but it's, they're like, it's pretty much nothing, right? Like maybe we had an hour or two of, some lecture that got lost in the, in the shuffle with everything else that we were learning.
Right.
And so then these social workers come out of school, and then some might be a child protection worker, and they have differing experiences.
Right.
And what's their ideology? And I think a lot of their ideologies don't understand abuse. I represent a lot of victims of family violence, a lot of women. And what do a lot of them tell me? Well, I didn't know anything about abuse. Yeah. Otherwise, I wouldn't have married him. I didn't realize these red flags.
Right.
And in many cases, I hear he was different. He was, the love bombing.
Of course.
And they feel the need to explain themselves.
Right.
Because they feel probably really shitty about falling into this trap.
Like how they get themselves in that position.
Yes. Right. It's anyway.
But my point is with the social workers, where are they at in their career? Yeah. Because if they haven't experienced it themselves and they don't have the training, well, they're in, for lack of better words, la la land, right? Where they just think that these are two parents who don't get along. And what they end up doing is they classify the vast majority of cases as post-separation conflict. Not abuse.
Interesting.
And so what that ends up doing, is it harms and enables abuse to continue. So let me explain it. Okay. Let's say there's two spectrums again of abusers. There's the abuser who genuinely intends to cause harm, and acts in that manner purposefully. Yeah. And then there's the other spectrum of an abuser who doesn't intend to be abusive, but is abusive and just lacks the insight. Okay. So and then of course there's a lot of in between. But like those are, I think, the two far end of the spectrums. Okay. So when you have a child protection agency that looks at a case of abuse and they say, this is post-separation conflict. Okay. Well, why are they saying post-separation conflict? Look, there's conflict.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hold on. What's the originating source of the conflict? Because if there's one person who's driving it and the other person's being reactive, that's not conflict. That is abuse. There's one person who's engaging in it. But they ignore all that. Okay. And there's post-separation conflict. So what are they doing? They're enabling the abuse. Yeah. So why do I make that statement? Well, let's look at it let's get into the mindset of somebody who might be abusive. So first, there is the person who doesn't mean to be abusive, right? Okay. Their actions are abusive. They just lack the insight. Maybe they're redeemable. I don't know yet. Everyone's different. But you have that person.
Okay.
Now, we as a domestic violence advocate for victims of domestic violence, right? If I look at a child Protection Agency and I say, look at all these cases you're doing of post-separation abuse.
Mm.
Okay. You're making a huge mistake. Okay. And you're failing these women.
Yeah.
And again, it doesn't have to be women, just
No, the
for
children
your viewers,
even.
because there's a lot of variations.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
But for the purposes of this discussion, I'm going to be gendered. So you're failing these women, and you, me, you will all agree on it. And lots of your listeners might agree on it as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, think about the person who has no insight. What's he saying? He's saying the opposite. Yeah, that Children's Aid Society is wrong because mom is the problem.
Mm.
Because they have no insight, because they haven't been called out on their
Right.
behavior.
Yeah.
So nobody's sitting there saying you are the problem.
Right.
But now, what has the Children's Aid Society done? Well, post-separation conflict. You're both at fault.
Mhm.
Both of you. That's all the form says. We verified abuse, post-separation conflict. Nobody's at fault. So what happens? Well, the behavior isn't being called out. So the abusive individual is going to continue.
Yeah.
Right.
And in fact, their argument is, I've been fully investigated.
Yeah.
And they have not determined that my behavior is abusive. We just don't get along. And
You're
then
arming them.
Yeah.
They're arming
You're giving
them.
them the permission to continue.
To
abusing.
continue.
you've basically
Green
given a
light.
permission structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you go to the opposite end of the bad faith actor that intentionally is doing it, they have the biggest, that is their dream. They love post-separation conflict as the finding, because all they do is go to court. Your Honor, I'm not abusive. We're both at fault. Let's try to do better. But that's what they say verbally.
Then they get to be the hero.
And then they continue to do what they do. And then once you're boxed into that post-separation abuse, okay, Children's Aid Societies, I've never seen them change their diagnostic
They don't
ever.
Mhm.
Everything that they do is now looked at the lens of post-separation abuse, or sorry, post-separation conflict as opposed to abuse.
Yeah.
So anything that happens, it's not abuse anymore. You guys just aren't getting along. Okay. So, and all the abusive behaviors are continuing in perpetuity.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
You've basically doomed them. Forever. And so now look at it from the judge's perspective.
Yeah.
So now you're a judge. Okay. You're a neutral person. You don't know. You have the two competing 12-page double-spaced affidavits written by skilled lawyers.
Yeah.
And you got, your 15 to 30 minutes to argue each to decide everyone's livelihood. And so what happens? Well, dad says X, mom says Y. All right, independent agency. What do you say? They're both at fault. Oh, both at fault. And you see the circle. You see how each person is passing the buck to the other in a way, right? The judge is relying on the Children's Aid Society. Okay, and then here's the rest of the circle. The Children's Aid Society relies on the judge, and they say, but there's a parenting schedule, so you have to follow the judge has decided you have a parenting schedule. The judge says, well, Children's Aid Society doesn't have a concern, or if they do, it's post-separation conflict. And it goes in the circle and circle and circle, around and around it goes. And nobody's taking responsibility. And if you ask a child protection worker, they'll blame the judge. And if you ask the judge, they'll say the Children's Aid Society worker.
And everyone's believing in this system that is failing everyone.
The children and the victims.
It's failing everyone.
And then sometimes what really irks me in this field is, when the judges rely on Children's Aid Society workers, I say, well, who's the worker? What skills and qualifications do they have aside from being hired by a child protection agency? Are they fresh out of school? Have they been doing this for 20 years? Have they been doing it right for 20 years or wrong for 20 years?
Sometimes the longer they've been doing it, they may have an old ideology
worse.
and the new. It's just right.
And so I am always amazed when I see a judge blindly follow. And again, it's not all of them, okay? But when I see them blindly follow child protection agency letter that says, this is my verification, post-separation conflict. Because if you ask the judge the question, tell me about the worker. Just give me any facts about the worker. Like, who are you listening to?
Yeah.
Right.
Whose advice are you taking?
They can't, other than a name on the paper, that they don't know who it is. And I'm like, why are you listening to that? Like, you don't know who they are. Do you know there is one person? Okay, this is so strange. There's one person who purports to do reunification therapy. She's a disbarred lawyer, disbarred out in a different province, and she has a big disciplinary history, multiple suspensions, and eventually had to sign an undertaking that effectively said, "You will not make representations in court." She moved to Ontario and is a reunification therapist. The judges listen to sometimes.
my
And I'm like,
God.
How is she still practicing?
Oh,
If she's had these undertakings.
I don't know. Because
How-
those
how is
undertakings,
that-
the undertakings apply to a different province.
but
But then you go to a judge and I'm like, do you know this person's history?
yeah.
Mhm.
And I give this as a more extreme example because this is a person who's, doing things in family court.
Yes.
And I've seen decisions that reference the name and relied on it. And I'm like, you know that this person is effectively not convicted because it's not criminal, but
Yeah.
has been found guilty
Right.
by the regulatory body of some very nasty things. And you're listening to this person that person isn't even equipped
Whoa.
to be a lawyer and make representations to as a lawyer. But now all of a sudden they're going to dictate what you decide.
Oh my God.
That's-
That's terrifying.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
So now apply that as well
yeah.
to child protection workers. Now,
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
not saying they have that bad history. They don't.
Right.
I've never seen one that has that bad history. But who are the people that you're taking
Where are the
recommendations
checks and
from?
balances?
And then who's
Yeah.
who's signing off on this? So there's
Exactly.
supervisors,
Yes.
right? The supervisors who oversee it and sign off on the reports. They're just as complicit.
Well, so now you're delving into a more complicated area about their structures.
Right.
So who's the supervisor? What training do they have?
Yeah.
And not only that, what knowledge do they have?
Mm.
So there's an expression, for example, when we do support calculations, for
Mm.
example, garbage in, garbage out,
Hmm.
right? If you're going to put in the wrong
Yeah.
figures, you're going to get the wrong numbers.
Yeah.
So if you're a supervisor, you're sitting there, you're at your desk, and you have to make a decision as a supervisor. And well, where are you getting your information from? You're getting it from the worker.
The worker.
Mm.
Well, so you're getting hearsay of hearsay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so now the worker comes and tells the supervisor, this is the way I see the case. So what's the supervisor going to do? In most cases, I think rubber stamp it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Right.
support your decision. Well, you're supporting it because you don't know any better.
Yeah.
The only information you've received is from the worker.
Right.
And, I can't tell you the number of cases I've been involved in where the worker, the notes are completely inaccurate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Things the worker said were never said, or they've mixed up people or
Oh
parties.
my God.
In some cases, I question whether they've mixed up cases when they've dealt with their notes. And how do I know this? Because I've been involved in cases where a worker has said something and I know for a fact my client's telling the truth because my client recorded the whole thing.
Oh my God.
I listened to the whole recording. So I know that what the worker said is
Wow.
false. And then sometimes the worker says something in the meetings and then denies that they even said it. And I'm like, but I have a recording of you saying it. So I know that you said it, and they deny it. And there's almost like a culture where if you call them out,
Mhm.
I don't find that they're
Yeah.
helpful. In 17 years of practice,
Mm.
I have not seen one occasion, not one, where somebody has complained or expressed a concern of a worker and the supervisor has stepped in and said, you know what?
Mm.
You're right.
You're right.
You're right.
And we're addressing this.
Right.
I've only seen them double down. And in many cases, not all, but many, I've seen reprisal. I've seen the worker then, because they stay on the case, they then turn on the person who made the complaint
Force.
against them. And so I have a struggle with the dynamics of the agency.
Right.
Mm.
And I question whether some of the supervisors should be truly independent as opposed
Yeah.
to a
Mm.
function of the agency,
Yeah.
that they work with the same people day in and day
Yeah.
out. And maybe they're friends. Maybe they go out for a coffee
Or
or
maybe
something.
it looks bad on them if, as a supervisor or manager, they've got shitty people under them.
And what if you're an agency that's, let's say, partially a charity and you're trying to get money and you're trying to get the
Right.
community's money and
Yeah.
you're trying to say
So-
that you're just this, right? And then
So
there's
much
a
conflict of
conflict of
interest.
interest because you can't have disruption
Yeah.
within your agency. You can't go
Yeah.
against your workers. So you just sort of keep tregging along and signing off and
Look, I don't want to delve into
No,
that
no, no.
area
no.
yet.
maybe
I'd
not.
rather, I'm going to
Yeah.
stick with kind of what I've seen
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
as a lawyer for a long
Yeah.
time. But look, I have concerns over a lot of these agencies. The way I prefer to look at them, interestingly enough, is I find that they're so unwilling to find abuse
Mm.
that when they finally find it, take it seriously. But when they don't find it, just treat it as a false negative. Like just
Interesting.
do your own independent investigation and
Right.
just ignore their finding. It's almost meaningless.
why is it not treated with the same scrutiny as like a criminal investigation?
Mhm.
So like you think of like a criminal investigation, it has to
They
go through
bring
all
an
these
expert,
processes,
yeah.
exactly, all of the evidence that needs to come out, you know, and then it is a policing agency essentially, and these verifications are like convictions.
Yeah.
So why is it not treated with the same scrutiny?
It's a question to ask Parliament, and you know,
I'm asking you, Parliament.
there's definitely advocates out there that have called for effectively disbanding all children's aid societies, and just breaking them down and rebuilding them from scratch, that they're so broken. I won't make a definitive declaration on that here today, but there's reasonable concern that they are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And I also think there is a big difference between what they say they do versus what people think they do.
Yeah, I think that's a really key point. It's like we need better expectation management, because again,
we should hold them to a high
we
standard.
definitely should, but I'm saying right now, like professionally, I have sent people to the CAS and it has backfired so monstrously that, you know, I struggle to sleep at night because I have now encouraged, and if they weren't the ones to do it themselves, I have a duty to report. So either way, what are we doing in this scenario?
So it goes back to the issue of them enabling abuse.
Yeah.
And it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you don't report to the Children's Aid Society, then the argument is, well, clearly nothing happened because you would have had it investigated. And if you report to them, but you can't rely on them.
Yeah.
Right.
And then they find post-separation conflict or they find nothing at all.
Right. It's a double-edged sword.
Then they say, oh, as you can see, I was fully investigated. Look, I'll give you another anecdote, okay? Real case that I did. I'll change the facts just a little bit again, even though, again, it's actually a reported decision. So there was a case of very bad abuse, and the judge directed that the Children's Aid Society investigate the abuse because the facts were really bad. And so the investigator was assigned and they investigated, and we then appeared back before the judge to say, tell me your findings. And the investigator said with a big smile on his face, I am pleased to say these are two wonderful parents who greatly love their children, and I have no concerns about either one of them. And the judge said, okay, thank you for your work. Counsel, do you have any questions? And we weren't in a trial process at this point. This was a judge who was very appropriately case managing a very challenging case. And the other lawyer's like, nope, thank you very much. And with a big smile on his face.
Sure.
And sir, can you just tell me, what are the concerns my client has about dad? Very generally. Just tell me, what did you investigate? That's all I want to know. What did you tell me her concerns? Excuse me, what do you mean? I'm like, you were called to investigate. What are the concerns? What did she raise with you?
Yeah.
Oh, she thought that he's not a good father. I said, give me the specific concerns that she addressed with you. Let me check my notes. Sir, you just got here. You just investigated. You just came and with a big smile on your face, made a declaration that these are two wonderful parents. Tell me the concerns. What did you investigate? And he looks at his notes and then says, and then gives me some examples of concerns. I said, sir, those aren't the concerns. They weren't even the concerns that were raised. And I'm like, what did you do? And he's like, well, I investigated, and they both have very nice houses, very clean houses. And it was basically one of those stereotypes of, they had a fridge full of food and nice clean house, and I didn't see any drug needles lying around. And, I didn't see a bunch of, alcohol bottles.
No past due bills on the coffee table.
And that was it. And this is many years ago I had that case, but it always stayed with me because I'm just like, you're relying on these people, but without exploring what knowledge do they actually have and what did they actually investigate? Yeah. Did they even understand the case? Because look, their argument might be, we're overwhelmed. We have thousands of cases we have to deal with.
Right.
We have a limited amount of time, so excuse us if we're not perfect. But the problem is, I can appreciate that you might have a limited amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
But again, these are real people,
Mm-hmm.
real children. And if you're tasked with protecting children as your foremost goal, if you are unable to do it, then don't do it.
Then don't do it.
Exactly.
Because
Causing more.
if you do it incompetently, then you are causing more harm
Right.
than good. And now your agency is not fit for service.
Mhm.
And so that is the struggle that I
Yeah.
have with a lot of child protection agencies. Now, again, can I say with 100% that every single one is bad? No,
No.
that's not true. There are
Yeah.
some wonderful social workers, child protection workers that really know their stuff, that really do good work.
Yeah.
But there's also many that I don't find fall in that category.
And so what's the solution?
If you could make one change.
If I could make one realistic
Yeah.
change, I would want them to undergo significant, mandatory, third-party, independent training
Mm-hmm.
on domestic violence and coercive control. I don't want it run by the agencies. I don't want them deciding the training.
Yeah.
I want it to be an intensive program, not a 1 or 2 hour
Yeah.
event, and
Lunch
maybe
and learn,
not even a 1-day event.
Yeah.
I want them to actually do a structured course on domestic violence and coercive control. Okay, that would be my number one recommendation for them. And I will also kind of pose a challenge, because there's always going to be people on the opposite end of where I'm sitting and saying, yeah, these agencies know what they're doing. You just don't like their results.
Right.
Maybe you're finding abuse in places it's not.
Mm.
To them, I say they're wrong. But I say, look, let's be practical here. Why don't you do a survey? Okay? Go to victims of domestic violence, both who have been found not to have been abuse victims by courts in their infinite wisdom, that they were not abused when they may have been, and ones that even the courts have deemed and found abuse occurred. Just go to the whole gambit and ask the victims, and even the ones that weren't deemed victims. Okay. Did you find the Child Protection Agency protected you? Did you find them to be an effective service? Okay. And if the result of that survey is that the majority of people said, you know what, they did a great job, I will sit down and you will never hear me again
You're gonna eat that humble pie.
criticizing children, because look, in the end, the proof is in the pudding.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I can sit and say whatever I want. Okay. And somebody else on the other end of the spectrum could say whatever they want. I said, look, you're a service-based industry, business, some might call it. Okay. But I won't go there today, but service-based industry that's designed to protect children. So have you protected children? So let's get the surveys.
Yeah.
The abuse victims, do they find that you're effective? What about the children? Let's start asking the children.
I was going to say, ask the children.
And you could ask adult children.
Right.
You could
Age
ask,
out of the system.
You could ask children who are of a sufficient age.
Yep.
And even children who are not of sufficient age. There are gentle ways of asking them. Like, oh, what do you think of that worker? Do you think that they understand what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, there's child-focused ways of doing it.
Did your situation improve afterwards?
Yeah, you can
Did
talk
things
to
get
kids.
better?
Right.
You know?
I'm willing to bet my career that the vast majority of people that survey will say that they did not find the agency effective and that they made things worse.
Yeah.
I would stake my career on that.
Okay, so let's talk about changes that are happening and that have happened.
Okay.
So Keira's law has already been put into effect.
Yes.
So let's talk more about that.
So, Keira's law is a law named after my stepdaughter, Keira Kagan, who was murdered by her biological father in a murder-suicide on February 9th, 2020. My wife and myself, I won't get into the entire history of the case. It's not the time, but we couldn't accept that it would just be something that would slip under the rug and be a case that was lost in time. And my wife, primarily, with the strength of insert whatever
Yeah.
strongest animal there
Yeah.
is, and then, multiply it by, infinity, decided we're going to memorialize her in a law. And we're going to get these people trained in domestic violence and coercive control because all the red flags were there. All the warnings were given, including by myself, very directly.
Yeah.
And so we got passed a law through a private member's bill called Keira's Law. And what it does is it provides training to judges about family violence and coercive control. Now, there are several aspects of Keira's Law that are of importance. The first is the availability of training. So when we were trying to get Keira's Law passed, which, by the way, we were told would never happen, but we got it done with some assistance, of course, but we got it done. And there's the training for judges. When we were looking at the training, judges have courses that they take on a yearly basis. And I looked at what courses were available that talked about domestic violence and coercive control. There was almost none.
Wow.
And so Keira's Law directs that courses be taught on the issue and for them to even report to, I don't know who, Parliament or whoever they're supposed to report to say we've now made these courses available. So that's for Superior Court judges.
Okay.
The provincial government passed Keira's Law provincially as well that made it actually mandatory for all new appointments provincially
Fabulous.
to take courses on family violence and coercive
Amazing.
control. So that's what we accomplished for Keira.
I mean, it's incredible.
But it's what I said back when we were advocating. And by the way, this was unanimously passed. Unanimous in both the House of Commons and the Senate across all party lines. We met with politicians from every party that you could think of that exists, and everyone was supportive of Keira's Law. It was not a political issue. It was everyone is on board that this needs to be done, and most were shocked that there was a lack of
hasn't
training.
already.
Yeah, that it hasn't been done.
Oh, that's incredible.
But what I said was there are two. Look, ultimately, what we need is a culture shift. Okay, we need the judges to recognize that domestic violence is very important and to take it very seriously and not dismiss it out of hand. So that's going to be a process. That will not be a change overnight.
Right.
But there have been some positive movements in this field, which I guess is C223.
Yeah.
That's coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's sort of the next step.
Yeah. So that's not my bill.
Right.
But that is effectively a bill, also a private member's bill, put out to effectively ban parental alienation and ban reunification therapy, reunification therapy camps. And I think that's a really important piece of legislation that needs to be passed in some fashion.
Yeah.
They've done similar legislation in the United Kingdom with great success. They've done it in various states in the United States. And it goes back to, I think, a recognition that radical parental alienation theory has permeated family court to levels that can no longer be tolerated.
Yeah.
Okay? Doesn't mean alienation doesn't exist. Okay? It just means that your theory is not rooted in science and you're doing it wrong significantly more than you're doing it right. And on top of that, with the reunification therapy, again, no standardized courses on it. There isn't even consensus as to what it is and what it should be.
It's pretty. It always reminds me of conversion therapy, or what's the other one that we were talking about? I can't remember. Not a conversion.
No,
there was another one, but it's pretty like primitive and barbaric to take children out of their homes, basically put them in these camps.
It's like
that
giving
they,
residential school
the whole,
vibes.
yeah, and then
It's
to force
disgusting.
them into relationships with their potentially abusive
So
parents. Oh, it just gives me the chills.
So there's a couple points to raise here. So number one, okay, there is a hierarchy that we like to use in family court as to who has the most knowledge of a
Right.
file.
Mm.
Number one is the client. They lived it.
Yeah.
Number two is the lawyer, because the lawyer heard it from the client.
Yeah.
Okay.
The last person is the judge.
Right.
Because the judge heard it from the client, who heard it from the lawyer, who heard it from the client.
Right.
Okay? They are the last person.
Yeah.
And most lawyers, or many lawyers, they can't present the case the way the client can. How are you going to
Right.
condense years
Years.
of potential abuse
Yeah.
in even a short trial?
Yeah.
Right? You have limited time.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a day, maybe you have 2 days to present, and you're nervous, you're stressed, you don't have notes in front of you to remember.
Mm.
Brain fog exists when
Sure.
you're an abuse victim, right? You may not recall events perfectly,
Right.
right? There's so much that could go wrong. But then the judge makes the decision, says, you're going to reunification camp. Okay, well, now you have a child with lived experience of abuse, okay? And they're being told that your memories are fake. Well, what does that do to a child who says, memories are real, I lived
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
The judge was wrong.
Yeah.
The social worker was wrong, who might have been captured by radical alienation theory.
Yeah.
Because there are certain social workers that I believe they're zealots.
Mm.
Okay, like every case I've seen with them is effectively alienation, even in the clearest cases.
So they probably get hired
Oh.
by the other lawyers because they know exactly what they're ordering. It's like you're ordering a large fries. I'm going to order up a side of an alienation with a side of
So
I don't know what.
So there are a group of social workers that I regularly see,
Hmm.
abusers, always want to be involved in their case, and it's the same people every time. I won't do it for this show, but I can name them from memory.
Yeah,
Okay, I'll tell
yeah.
you. Let me guess.
Right.
These people are being recommended,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they are zealots. Okay, my goal is actually just to get somebody that I call normal.
Yeah.
Just
Right.
give me somebody, and it's okay. They can have knowledge and background on alienation. That's
Right.
okay. But they're not zealots.
Yeah.
Right? They understand both sides of
Mm.
the argument, and they will look at abuse
Mhm.
seriously. And
Yeah.
that's all I ever tried to
Yeah.
get. Just give me somebody who will look at this objectively, not
Yes.
who has tunnel vision, confirmation bias.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But they always have the same people.
Mm.
Okay. But what you'll find is every single one of these reunification therapists, or so-called reunification therapists, they make it up.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know this because this person does it one way, this person does it another way, that person does it a third way, fourth way, fifth way, 10th way. In fact, I haven't seen in 17 years, I haven't seen two so-called reunification therapists do it the same way. And why is that? Well, again, there's no standardized
Yeah.
courses.
Right.
There isn't a governing body that's been
Right.
accepted to say, this is what you need to do and learn.
Yeah.
They make it up as they go.
Oof, that's a red
And then
flag.
these kids are being told your memories are fake.
Right.
So now they get institutional betrayal trauma.
Mm.
Okay. And then when you're into radical parental alienation theory, well, guess what? Remember, it's
Yeah.
all circular.
The other parent is the
The other parent must not be
the
encouraging
villain.
this.
right.
You're saying that it's real because your memories are so deeply ingrained that
You were coached.
you're coached.
You're manipulated.
Oh, you're
Your
coached.
memories aren't yours. You were told to say this.
Everything. And
Yeah.
there's also some, look, the research on this area is slim and inept.
Mm.
And I use that word very specifically because if you look at any of the research that's been done on reunification therapy, it is lacking
Yeah.
in process. It is very small sample sizes.
Right.
Mm.
A lot of it's based on confirmation bias,
Mhm.
not objective. They're not well done. Maybe the best research that's been done on this, and even that has flaws, but even in that research study, they concluded that reunification therapy only works when generally works when it's voluntary and
Yes.
child-led.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what does that mean? You're not forcing the child into that program, and
Yeah.
you're not forcing the child into unwanted contact with
Yeah.
that parent.
Right.
You're waiting till the child is ready.
Right.
And that was the takeaway of the one study.
Mm.
Even then it had problems, but that one study that seemed to have more merit than the rest. So
Wow.
I support a banning of this process at a minimum for the time being.
Yeah.
Because it's not working. It's not helpful.
Yeah.
And I think it's causing more harm than good.
Yeah.
What would you say to some of our listeners haven't yet left, but they might find themselves in an abusive situation and they haven't left. And then they're hearing all this. Well, if I leave and I say that he abused me, I'm going to be punished, or they're not going to believe me, or they're not going to believe the children. What would you say to them?
It's a difficult question because their concerns are reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
What I say to them is this. There are changes that are slowly being made.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone could guarantee your safety or the safety of your child. I say, generally, someone like myself, and I hate to say it, but it's true, the focus isn't on damage elimination, it's on damage reduction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? We want to reduce as much as possible the harm that will befall yourself and the child,
Right.
but in all likelihood, there will still be some harm.
Yeah.
However, remaining in an abusive marriage is also equally unhelpful. The child is being exposed to abuse effectively on, I'm using daily basis, but it's not that simple.
Well, the threat is always lingering.
The threat, right. And that's the problem, right?
Right.
You don't know when it's going to happen.
That unintentional, right.
So you're going to be in a situation where the child thinks that this is normalized. That might impact the child, their psychology, their emotional state, for always being 100% in that parenting time, but also in their future relationships. Yeah. So you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. But at a minimum, you should at least try to protect your child or children as much as possible. It's a tough spot. And look, I've unfortunately seen too many victims who were scared to leave the marriage for that exact reason. They don't trust the systems in place, and they have remained, even to this day, in very, very abusive relationships under the theory, I'd rather be there 100% of the time, try to protect my child than a partial time. There's just no easy answer. I've even seen people get back together with their abuser after a court was suggesting that there should be shared parenting because they said, I just can't tolerate this. And they endured it. But, these stories are tragic, and it's an example of why we need to move forward with legislation such as Bill C-223 to ban this ideology, because it all comes back to parental alienation theory. That's what's driving a lot of this. It's like two opposite sides of the coin. And that should tell people a lot. Why every time abuse is raised, parental alienation theory is raised. What does that tell you about whether this is a valid concept or not, or whether this is now just a defense and just another form of abuse and power and control? So I apologize. There is no easy answer.
No,
I can
never
provide
is in this situation
to victims, but hire a very good and knowledgeable lawyer who knows domestic violence. Because another big pet peeve of mine are victims going to lawyers that give them horrific advice. I've seen advice that was so horrific. I've seen somebody where the husband was just charged with domestic violence, and the next day their lawyers advised them agree to shared parenting. I'm like, are you kidding me? And they come crying, rightfully so, saying, I agreed. Why did you agree? My lawyer told me I had to.
Right.
Can you fix it? And the answer is, I don't know if I can, because as I said, once you give it to them,
very hard to change.
And there is one other point that I want to make to your viewers. It is a much more dangerous event to take away something from an abuser than to give it to them. So there is a big difference between, look, let's be cautious and slow, and I will give you, assuming you could prove yourself, additional parenting time. I'll consent, and slowly but surely just behave. Versus here's your parenting, but if you misbehave, I'm going to take it away.
Right.
So once you start taking it away from them,
Yeah.
okay, that becomes the biggest problem.
Right. The children and the former spouse are at risk.
Yeah. Now the abuse is going to skyrocket.
Everything's going to escalate
Yeah.
quite significantly.
Yeah. Oh,
Wow.
man.
There's
Phil,
a lot.
thank you for the work you're doing and shedding a light and coming here and sharing all of this. 17 years of seeing, again, more than I'm sure you want to, but you are fighting the good fight, and we really do appreciate.
Let me leave your viewers with just one final
Please.
one final thought, because as I say, I think one of the problems is people feel treated as their court file number.
Mm-hmm.
But I say it like this. There's a thing, it's called, it's not even the correct term, but vicarious trauma.
Mm.
Okay? I once was introduced, this is many years ago, to a police officer who did a lot of domestic violence work. And I go to him, I said, tell me about your work. What did you see? He's like, oh, I've been off work for like a year now on disability. Like,
Yeah.
what's a disability, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah.
Trauma. Like, what's trauma? He said, I've just seen and heard so much domestic violence that I can't do my job anymore, and I'm suffering from trauma. And so I just sat there, and this is many years ago. I said, wow. I said, if a trained police officer, okay, just hearing about it, can suffer so much trauma that they can't even function at a workplace that they're trained to perform, just imagine living it. And I think many people they lose sight of the fact that people have those lived experiences, and you're treating them as if they didn't have it, and you want them to act a way that they're not currently emotionally capable of acting, and you're punishing them when they can't.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's right.
Yeah. It does feel punitive. It really does. We ask so much of people in the most heightened emotional state, and that's with no abuse. We ask so much of them at time of divorce to make these decisions that impact their future, their children. And then you throw in this whole other layer where, the more you share and the more you come forward, the more you're punished.
We have a lot of work to do.
A lot of work to do. Yeah.
So let's go and do it.
But airing it out and talking about it is definitely a big step.
We're moving the needle with these conversations and with the work that you're
shining
doing.
a light on all of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think people need to realize it's not going to be an overnight progression.
Yeah.
It's going to be slow, painful, and grueling.
Yeah.
But if you stop advocating, then they win.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. We can't stop.
We won't.
We can't stop, won't stop.
Nope.
You have to
No.
have some hope. Otherwise, what's left?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you so
Wonderful.
much.
Thanks
Thank
for having
you.
me.
This episode was written and created by Alex Howard and Amanda Silver, produced, edited, and engineered by RTF Productions. Make sure to rate and review our show if you loved it, to give us a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast to stay up to date on all upcoming episodes. Thanks for listening, and go easy on us. We're not your ex.